Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Beanalog with Beanalog with Jean-Luc.
Hi.
And Barry.
Hello.
And today we have as guests Ray.
Hey.
And Justin.
Hello.
Take it away, guys.
What it do? What's up? We've already been talking for some time at this point, so we've made our introductions. I should mention that I haven't gotten to hang out with Justin yet, so this is kind of like the first time. So we'll probably talk about some random stuff.
Okay.
Do we have an icebreaker question? What's a good icebreaker question? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite synthesizer?
Well, what'd you do over the weekend?
What did I do over the weekend?
There's a lot of questions.
It's still the
I'm working on a project for work. It's funny. I have I'm in charge of the IT stuff, and I have a server rack that's in a room that's behind like a grate, black painted metal grate door. So my idea is to put a big red, green, and blue LED panel way in the back. So when the lights are off, you're going to see this thing coming through that grate or whatever. So that's what I was working on this weekend, trying not to blow up these LED panels I got off of eBay.
Nice.
That's cool.
Is that for Halloween or just
It's going to be year round. So I found there's a bunch of stuff on the web. There's a Super Mario clock where every time he jumps and hits the block, the time changes by a minute.
It's not the same without the sound.
No, I know. I'm going to add the sound, I think.
I probably heard it wrong, but the way that you describe it, it sounded like there was going to be some really mysterious lights shining through a fence.
Yeah,
so
that's the idea.
So it's going to look like a Stephen King movie.
Yeah, and it's in our main hallway, so when people walk past it, they're gonna catch it out of the glimpse it out of the corner of their eye and be like, "What's that?" and then look back. I also plan to have it turn on and off randomly, so it won't be there all the time. So.
Nice.
It's like some John Carpenter.
Yeah.
We had a whole conversation about that last time, but let's not talk about John Carpenter this time.
Barry, what'd you do, Barry?
Me?
Yeah.
Actually, I do have a project that I'm going to be working on that's actually synth related.
Yes.
I have an Akai S6000 sampler that I've had for 3 or 4 years. I got off of eBay because now they're dirt cheap compared to what they used to be. Mm-hmm. Always wanted one. Didn't want to pay the money for it though. But of course they have SCSI hard drives, which is old technology, and SCSI is noisy and prone to messing up when you least expect it. So now you can get SCSI to SD card adapters, which is really cool because instead of the big nasty SCSI hard drive in there, you've got this little tiny, SD card. So it's
more
really cool because all you do is
unplug
unplug the SCSI hard drive, plug that in, but you just got to set it up ahead
That's
of time.
That's fascinating.
So you got to mount it and stuff.
Yeah, there's all kinds of applications like that now for all the vintage computers. You can buy adapters that, whatever this particular computer used, you can get an adapter that lets you use an SD card now. And you can load, all the file systems it ever had in creation on one card. And,
right, and what's interesting is the S6000 and 5000 are actually 386 computers. There's a 386 motherboard in it, and Akai just made some custom firmware and
bootloader or something that opened their own operating system.
Yeah, so that's all it really is.
So for anyone under 40, the SCSI drive is what those old floppy drive?
Well,
the
SCSI was a protocol for interfacing a hard drive or a floppy drive or whatever CD drive to the motherboard, whereas now you have what is it now?
Now it's SATA is the most common.
That's right.
Yeah.
SATA.
So
there's IDE.
SCSI is SCSI. That's just called SCSI.
Okay.
And then the other thing about it is back then it was very expensive but it was very good. It was like bleeding edge as far as technology goes.
Okay.
But nowadays it's harder to find that stuff, and then it's not as reliable as it once was.
It's really amazing.
And those ribbon cables sometimes disintegrate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you pull one out from something old and it crackles in your hand and breaks because the The plastic
I
and
feel
rubber
like
round
that's
is
got
so
to be
old.
like a moment that feels very defeating. Like,
But those cables are still readily available. That's no problem.
Jean-Luc, what'd you do?
well, I was about to add for a second because like hard drive stuff is really interesting, especially in music production on your computer. How much it completely changes the way that the workflow is. Like it just gives you so much more like ease of loading things up and like
The size of the drive or what?
the speed and like the size and speed of the drive, like solid state drives. If you're working on like a big orchestral track or something and you want all the VSTs to continually run and not have to like append the effect and then like render it down and then leave that alone. I don't like finality like that. I like to just keep it so it can change at any moment. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
And what'd you do?
What did I do this week? In between self-loathing, I started trying to write a lot more music than I had in the last like couple of weeks. Got to jam with a friend of mine, and we kind of like I got to bust out the D50 and work with like that sound. Sometimes it's just nice to sit down and work with one specific keyboard and just kind of enjoy the environment that it creates. Because sometimes I get very anxious to want to like play like 3 or 4 keyboards at the same time and have all those sounds available to me. And there's always more creativity through limitations, and I think that's good. Yep, making music. That's
What
I
did you do this weekend?
I got to hang out with my wife all weekend, and it was awesome.
And watch Netflix.
And
I was seeing those posts on Facebook. It's
yeah, I
just
think
like,
we're just
I
watching
discovered Netflix. I discovered Netflix, and I've been watching Netflix like for days.
And she's had us watching Kitchen Nightmares for the last month, and I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure if I don't know.
I can relate it a lot with synth making and business orientated stuff, because a kitchen is very much like a business, and it has the same rules almost. So I'm just like developing
That's cool.
tactics. So I'm like, oh, how am I gonna sell this? Oh, how can I approach that? Oh my God,
like universal truths.
Ramsey Gordon is the truth.
And
He is the truth.
but she did play at the farmers market.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
saw the pictures.
That's neat.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, that was exciting.
It felt like Seattle. It was it wouldn't stop raining, but it was just
And
very
people-
very light rain.
And
It was-
people
it was
were
cool.
there. People were there, like walking around with their umbrellas. Like, yeah, like Seattle, it kind of, for a minute, it felt like we weren't here. Like, I was like, oh, wow. People didn't get scared. It was really nice. The downtown market is really nice.
They have a market on Sundays. On just about most Sundays, they have the Hobby Lobby market that's out on Mesa,
Okay.
and they sometimes have live bands and stuff. So that's kind of an opportunity there, I guess, too.
Is it by the city?
It's down like far west.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, is it by
No.
Who
okay.
sponsors
I
it?
think it.
Yeah, who sponsors?
You know what? I
Yeah.
don't know.
This one where I was at, it was by the city of El Paso.
Okay.
So there's different markets, and there's different people who sponsor the markets.
The Las
And,
Cruces market is
it's
really
nice.
cool.
Yes, people say that it's
I went
really
and
nice.
got like the homemade soda pop there,
Yeah.
and they had birch beer, which is like one of my very favorite soda flavors. That
That was 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
Yeah, they have music too. But yeah, what's it called? Synthesizer related. I don't think I've been working as much. I think I need to. I need to go back, because I'm gonna have a gig in September. September 11, guys.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a gig. I'm gonna be playing live, and let's see how that goes, because I haven't played live in a while. And I mean, and if I done it, I know that I had a lot of work to do.
I always loved the ideas that we had about maybe doing like a showcase.
Oh yeah, it
'Cause that
never
would-
goes through.
it would really get me out of my head because it's like someone has challenged me to like get out and like start playing music, and I really want to. But like I was telling you earlier, I have like this like codependency thing where it's like either somebody says something bad or good, but both of those things are good because I have something to like interact with inside of my head instead of like an echo chamber. So it's nice to have input from people and to see where things are going. And
Sometimes you just need to get thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's kind of, I think I'm at that point where I'm like, I know I'm a really good musician. I won't say that normally because it sounds like super prideful and like, but I'm like not a bad musician. So I can do stuff. I'm not incapable.
you have it in you.
Yeah.
So one of these days, hopefully
Well,
soon.
I guess this is our second podcast, and we're still working on some things. Last time we had Leo with us, but this time Leo is our producer. He's our producer
Behind the scenes.
and behind today's episode. So let's give him an applause. Thank you, Leo, for your hard work.
Little golf clap.
Yeah. And as it called, and the reason that we have Justin today here is because we wanted to invite him to be part of it. We all know each other from our gear meetups, and we wanna include everybody little by little, to come over and talk to us about what they do. And Justin is very technical, and he's always building. He's always building, and he's super talented. And today I wanted him to talk to us about because everybody at the studio, they came out with a machine, and the machine it's still in the works, but we wanna. I mean, I would like to talk about it, and I don't know, maybe or more ideas about how we can all get included.
Barry's doing a demonstration, but
Yeah, well, you
It's-
can.
That's
see
not
it,
how
sorry.
microphones work, Barry.
See, looking at that one, I need to. I forgot to bring my
Oh, yeah.
Allen wrench so I can fix it.
that would
because
be
the-
crazy, wouldn't it? If you could
the,
do like some
phono
sort of
jack pushed in. Yeah, the history behind this, the MIDI clock divider, is Barry and Ray contacted me and said, "Hey, we got this idea," and so I thought, "Hey, I can try and help out." And the idea was to create a device that can synchronize MIDI instruments with the MIDI clock, and then further, it can divide the MIDI sync signal so that you have sequencers running at different divisions of the clock. So you could have, your main sequencer running at full speed, and then another sequencer running, say, at half speed, for example. So I came up with a prototype and got it kind of working. Real ugly. It's in the corner over there. A little wooden structure.
That actually was
I like the
nice.
wood one. The wood
Yeah.
one's cool.
And so yeah, that was the first one that
Classy.
we got, and
The
then
wood is classy.
I've been through a few variations, versions, trying to dial in the design of it, and we got it to a point where it's working fairly well. We had 3 of them running at the last meetup, and they generally stayed in sync and were pretty fun to jam with. There's a lot of similar things on the market, but a lot of them are super priced high, and then this one is a little more geared towards live. A lot of the other ones, I was just looking at another machine today, but it's all controlled with software. So like you would set it up to do what you want and then leave it alone, whereas this one's a little more interactive.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about this one that we were able to demonstrate at the last meetup was that with this, you know how sometimes where someone's got a drum machine or something and they're jamming away on it, and you come in with your synth that has a sequencer and you want to sync to it, and you plug in your MIDI cable, so you got clock from their drum machine going into your sequencer, but you got to tell them, hey, can you press stop first and then press go so mine will sync up. Some devices won't sync up unless you do that. But with this box, you can plug the output of that drum machine into this box and then send one of the MIDI outs from the box into your sequencer. And this box, the MIDI clock divider, has a stop play button on it that you can use to start up your sequencer without that drum machine having to stop. So it's a way to jump into a jam without interrupting the jam. And that's really, really cool. That's super handy.
And then a side effect of it is it has 3 analog outputs where it can send out gate signals. So it's really easy to interface it with Eurorack style stuff that can take a clock signal and synchronize it. So that's another added benefit from with this MIDI clock divider.
Hopefully we'll get the...
And it's green.
Yeah.
The current version is green, which is funny. It was not intentional.
It really looks like it fits like right in perfectly with like the Bassel devices, like the little mini mixer they have, the Dude mixer, and then the what is it, the Micro Granny? I feel like the Micro Granny fits the aesthetic too.
Yeah, we're in a kind of an amazing time right now where you can design a printed circuit board and have it show up at your door in like 7 days, and $2 a board or whatever,
Guess
which
Behringer can't do that.
amazing. Yeah. So the funny thing was I didn't intend for it to be green. Green is the default for all the PCBs, the ones you normally would see, and you can change the color when you check out. And I just forgot to change the color to something else, and it came in green. And I just happened to have this green acrylic to make the case out of.
Wow.
So it actually worked out all right.
I'm a big fan of like the old like Game Boy Advances, and they have that like translucent cool thing. It's very like 2001.
Yeah, the interesting design challenge with this stuff is you can make the entire thing using the printed circuit boards from China, but the case is the issue. It's always a challenge to either get a custom case made or find a case that fits your application, and that's the one real struggle with this whole project so far.
I think it could like kind of allow for like some creative mistakes and things like that. Like find some like really weird looking colors or like I don't know how you print on them, but maybe you could even get like some art or like decal kind of stuff going on with people that really enjoy the product.
Mm-hmm.
So on the functions of it, what's really cool is dividing the clock down. Things like Korg vocalists that only give you one measure of sequence, things that give you only one measure. If you divide the clock down by half or by 4 even, all of a sudden that sequence from that Volca doubles or quadruples. Even though it's going slower, you can have like drony type stuff or single notes that change over the course of a whole measure because you divided down this clock, which it wouldn't do by itself.
You're able to hear
that's super cool.
How fast does it go?
the details.
Top BPM? Do you?
Well, yeah. So it can function either as a master where it generates its own tempo. It goes up to like 224, I think, and it goes down to 40 or something like that. Yeah, there can be issues with that because if you that's one of the challenges with MIDI. Any MIDI instrument is that they all implement MIDI a little bit different, and they may not follow the strict protocol or the manual that goes with designing MIDI things. So some instruments will only tolerate you dividing down the clock a certain amount before they'll lose sync.
The Roland TR8, we had it. Well, that one does fall off, or it'll stop but it's like at 12 or 24 or something like that. Yeah. Something ridiculous.
It just depends on each thing, and that's one of the things that you can do with this, which is nice, is you can because different synthesizers have. They follow different, or they have. I guess the right way to say it would be, some of them are less programmable and more programmable. Like the Volcas, you can't tell the Volca to not respond to a play start and stop message. So if you have a master keyboard doing a sequence and then you hit a play, that Korg Volca is going to play every time it gets that. But this machine can filter that out, which lets you. Now you can start your sequence on your main machine, and then you can use the play and the stop button on the MIDI clock divider to start and stop that sequencer, and it won't react to any other devices starting and stopping, which is a nice feature.
And these are 3. They have 3 channels of clock division on them. they have 4 MIDI ports on them, but one is a master in if you use a drum machine or something as a master clock. Then you have 3 MIDI outs. But what's really cool is that there's MIDI in and out on the sides on 3.5 millimeter jacks, TRS jacks, and that allows you to chain several of these guys together. So if you have need of, say, 12 channels of MIDI clock division, you could chain 4 of them together, and they would all follow the same clock. That's
and we did have 3 of them running together at the last meetup, and it was pretty good.
Worked really well.
Yeah, it worked well, and that was Barry's idea to add those in and out jacks to chain them together. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. I also want to know about the work that you do with your, because you've been building a lot of sequencers. I noticed that.
Yeah, I have
what is the ideal? What is the ideal for you? Like, which one is? Because I mean, I seen probably like 4 prototypes.
Yeah,
I don't know which one is the one.
I have a ton of projects always going on at the same time, and I have an issue with sequencers for some reason.
And the TTSH.
And the what?
TTSH.
Don't talk about that. But yeah, so I always have a bunch of projects going on at the same time, and I have it's sort of an all-in-one little sequencer with its built-in voice, and the neat thing about it is it's fairly easy to build. So the idea would be that it would be a do-it-yourself type clinic kit to be assembled, with a bunch of folks that want to learn how to solder and build stuff. And the idea behind it would be that it's actually playable. We've done clinics before, but the issue is that it's usually a little tiny project, and yeah, you can get it going, but it's not very useful at the end. So the idea behind this one is it's actually a sequencer that you can play. It has its own sound, and then you can also send control voltage to like a Euro rack, or you can send MIDI out. So it has 3 different options for the output. That one's still in the early stages. I got the first prototype from China, but I haven't had a chance to get it to the next version.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What's it called? But which one is your favorite? Because I seen 4 of them. Which one is the one that you like the most from the ones? I mean, I know that all of them are like.
Are you talking about the ones that I'm making? Yeah. I think that one's probably that has the biggest promise. As far as future. Some of the other ones are fun. But yeah, I just have to decide which ones I want to kind of keep going on.
Yeah. You're also great jamming, like I seen you when you're with us. I mean, you get like right away into it, I have to warm up, I'm gonna sound a little bit all over the place on the beginning, and then I kind of sound good, and then but you are one of the ones that hits the table and you're already making big sounds.
Oh, thank you.
You combine musicality with like the technical side of things, and you're able to like combine those and make that work for you.
Yeah, he said I'm gonna say a good musician.
Oh, thank you.
Do you make music, or you're not really putting yourself out there as a musician?
I don't have like an artist page or anything. I make music on my own, and I haven't like sat down. See, my biggest issue is, like you said in the beginning, is I'm a builder. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to do, is make things.
Okay, we're going to start a band.
So as soon as I make something, and then I don't take the time to invest into using it. Mm-hmm. I want to make the next thing, or the next thing.
And you make some really great modules. I still use your irregular gate syndrome.
Yeah, that's a great module. One of the ones I created.
You do El Paso's own Kraftwerk band.
You do have your website for making, like as a maker?
I have I have a YouTube where I just have random stuff. It runs the gamut. The last few things I've put on YouTube that actually got a decent amount of traction is tutorials on how to design printed circuit boards specifically geared towards synthesizer,
awesome.
The Euro rack stuff. So, and I have a few more. I have ideas. I just need to sit down and record them.
Okay.
But basically, because you can go online and you can find schematics for all kinds of modules going way back in history. And if you learn how to create printed circuit boards, you can actually make finished modules. And that's the great thing that's about Euro rack. And it kind of goes along with the MIDI clock divider, because the one thing you don't need when you design a Euro Rack module is a case. All you have to do is create the printed circuit board and a panel, and now you've got a module you can slap in your rack. It's if somebody wants to make their own modules, these tutorials show them how they can do it and order the printed circuit boards from China.
What's your YouTube channel?
It's my name, Justin, Justin, and then my last name, Ahrens, Ahrens. I don't think I have a handle or anything special. It's just my first name and my last name.
Okay.
And then I had another video that I had that got a ton of hits on was I had created an arcade game, and I had it where the monitor would automatically rotate. So if you're playing Mortal Kombat, it would be in the sidiways orientation. But if you're playing Galaga, it would turn 90 degrees,
cool.
and then it would be vertical. So it would would maximize the amount of screen space that your video game takes.
I gotta say, I'm instantly thinking of like music video ideas.
Yeah.
Like, how cool would it be to have a totally unique, custom, like, thing that can do all these like really cool visual aspects?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, along
for
that
a show, maybe.
Yeah,
would be cool.
along that lines, when I was working on that LED panel this weekend, what I want to do too is create some inputs for it, where you could plug CV control voltages from the Euro Rack into it, and it'll display it.
Like
So
an
it
oscillator.
it could be like a real low-res oscilloscope, or you could use colors. You know, if the voltage goes positive, then it turns into the blue. If it goes negative, it turns into red. And it maybe mix like 3 channels together and just, plug them all in. I want to mess with that too.
Yeah.
So
And
We have
that's
a
a
lot
lot
of-
of math.
We have a lot of there's a lot of secret arcade aficionados in El Paso. It seems like they're just kind of underground. You got to find them. Because Barry, you said you had like a really cool, like, what was that one that's really weird looking arcade game?
The Vectrex?
Yes.
Yeah.
That thing
Yeah,
is
we've got
awesome.
a Vectrex. Yeah, it's cool.
I
The
wanna-
Vector Graphics, the only Vector Graphics home system that was released to the public.
Oh, it was a home system. Okay.
Yeah, it's a home. It came out in '82. I got it Christmas of, I think it was '82 or '83, and it looks like a little portable TV,
Yeah.
and it's got a little controller. It even has the light pen to where you can draw on it and stuff. It's really cool.
What? It's like a Fairlight?
Well,
That's
sort of.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
It's
always
really
been that tie-in to like arcade stuff. I was thinking about probably the first electronic, my introduction to electronic music at the very beginning was my Commodore 64,
Yeah.
which was the
The
first
SID.
public,
It sounds so good.
the first personal home computer
Yeah.
that had a 3-voice chip in it that lets you make actual music. And I always remember the trackers where you could download songs that people had created. And the one that always got me was the Tom Sawyer.
Yeah.
Rush. and every once in a while, I'll look that up on YouTube and just hit play and listen to that. And it takes me back to when I was a little kid, messing around on my Commodore 64 with a cassette tape drive. And yeah,
The tracking
cool.
technique like that's sort of how a lot of music was done for like the Super Nintendo, and they had to do a lot of programming and things like that. And I love like digging into like the guy who did Donkey Kong Country, and like he used like partial samples from like a Korg wave station, and it's really. I was talking with Barry about this as well, as how influential video game music has been on my personal music, and just the way that I look at things and how I like to find sounds, because there's a lot of very creative sound effects in video games as well.
Justin, what are your influences relating to the sound that you're looking for when you're building Euro?
Usually I'm not so much looking for sounds, because generally speaking, there's all kinds of sound generators already out there. So what I'm usually thinking about when I'm working on designing a module is some kind of a small function, a thing that I can. That's another great thing about the Euro Rack, is that you can pick apart a synthesizer and take one little piece of it out of there, and then by doing that, you expand your options of how it could be used. Instead of it being part of a permanent keyboard, now you've got it split out, and you can use it in different ways. Like Barry was mentioning the gate syndrome module that I created. And basically, it's just it adds randomness to your music. So you can input a gate signal, like say a kick drum or a snare drum, and by turning the knob, you can tell it to just skip every once in a while, skip one of those. And just by doing that little thing, it adds a little bit of, randomness and makes things interesting. So that's generally what I'm looking for when I'm doing my modules. I come up with a small idea, and then and almost every time I'll find that somebody else has already done it years and years ago. And there's what's the mutable beat? No, it's branches.
Branches.
Yeah, branches is the mutable instruments version of what I made. And it's but mine comes at it in a little different way, and it's more. And my other.
We don't want to get sued.
Yeah.
It's
not.
It's different.
No, yeah, but
I actually have branches, and it's different enough.
Yeah.
To where it feels like it's doing something like completely different.
Yeah, and those are more. I don't know.
Is
what
that
the right
considered
word is.
generative music?
Yeah,
like when you
it
have
can-
that
It's
randomness.
a key. It's
a
one
key
little
part of it,
part
yeah.
in generative music. In fact, I was going to say, probably your ideas about how you're coming up with stuff is similar to the thinking when someone is sitting in front of a large modular system, because you're basically using these little bits of what would be a complete synthesizer and reorganizing them to make something different, except you're doing it more at the component level
Yeah.
rather than at the function level.
Yeah, and then the other thing that makes a lot of these projects possible is that you can now purchase these microcontrollers that that designers would have died for in the 80s. An Arduino was unthinkable back then. I mean, what they could have done.
You have to have a whole computer.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
one
it
thing.
basically replaces a whole computer, and that's what's inside the MIDI clock divider is actually 2 of those Arduino chips, and that's another thing that makes it possible. And you can do a lot of this stuff, and I do have a tremendous respect for those that do it all analog, and an example of that would be the the Tom Whitwell music thing modular.
Oh yeah,
The Turing machine. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Turing machine, which is kind of like one of the quintessential modules out there. It's like everyone start with random instruments, but it was created completely analog. It just uses a few analog chips, and it gets really neat random stuff. But I don't have that level of understanding to design those kind of circuits or whatever. But I do have the programming skills, so I can use the programming to mimic that same behavior.
For people who may not be familiar with some of the more those sorts of things, because like I'm very like a mainstream gear kind of person. Like I don't get to dig into a lot of like those sorts of things that you guys are talking about, which I don't remember their names. But I would say like for somebody who's just getting into it, maybe if you see like if you play with an Arturia drum brute, there is like these really interesting randomized things that you can get, and assigning them to each pad, you can get these really wildly different feels, and doing that with audio and other aspects, whether it's like samples or synthesizers, to have like that sort of randomness. It's very like interesting and very expansive, the sounds that you can get by having those things added to it.
Well, and you mentioned the generative music, and that's kind of my goal with the modular synthesis and stuff, is to try to get to that level where I can kind of create something and hit play and then let it go on its own and see what comes out.
It's like artificial intelligence.
It is, and there's some folks on YouTube that do amazing, 1 hour live where they hit play and they step away and let it go, and it's, but
I'm curious if you could work backwards and
Yeah.
actually program an artificial intelligence to learn the things that are in the code, and then they just decide to add extra stuff.
They have AI bots that can compose a symphony and whatever and stuff like that, and they just have a whole list of rules and follow these rules generally. Every once in a while, break a rule.
Like you give them some, like a handful of MIDI data, and they'll be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
we're going to copy this
You give
set
them
of
a-
styles." It's
yeah.
kind of like AI art, where you like put in like certain image information, and then you combine the two, and you get something totally different and really
One of the
interesting.
things that's fun to do that I enjoy doing is when you can dial in the degree of randomness for something in particular. So like say you have a knob that goes from 0 to 10. At 0, it's not random at all. And as you go, it slowly increases. Well, you put some of those in between your patch, and you actually patch up something that is intentional. You have a melody, you have a beat, you have something that's repeating like you normally have, but you slowly increase randomness in different parts of that patch as it goes, and all of a sudden it starts morphing out of what you had originally patched. But you can always bring it back in.
Yeah.
Those kind of
then
things are really fun.
There's also a way to, what is it? Have a tendency to hit on a certain type
bias. You
of
can
note.
bias, and you can weight things. It depends on how you're
So you have the
implementing
randomness, and then you also have that to ring
Yeah.
it in so that it kind of still feels like the same
Yeah.
song. So like if it has a swing to it,
And you can have
it wants to
things
hit on
that
a certain note.
seem random, but they're not. Like just using an LFO. If you, like, let's say you make a pattern that's, and this doesn't have to be modular. This can be just on a synth that has a sequencer built in. You make a 16, like a 16th note pattern, and you get the filter, and you pull the filter down to the point where it's almost not there, where you're just barely hearing it, and then you modulate that filter with an LFO, and you use the LFO to control how it feels random.
That's something I really enjoy about the Roland Gaia, because
Yeah.
there's 3 full sets of those synthesizers and LFOs in there, so you can do a whole like Enterprise Starship sound like background,
Yeah.
have like noise that's like slowly like changing.
Yeah, so you don't really need random to
Yeah.
make it feel random. I mean,
I
you can have one LFO modulating that filter and have another LFO modulating that LFO,
Yeah.
and then another LFO modulating,
And even more
something
so
else.
when there's no tempo sync.
Yeah.
So it'll always hit on something different somewhere down the line.
Yeah, yeah.
I enjoy that.
Well, for the ones that don't know much about Eurorack or mainly Eurorack, you can visit VCV Rack and take a look in there and learn.
Yeah, that's a virtual modular system that runs on PC or Mac.
I feel
it's
so bad.
It is so great because if you don't know anything about modular and want to just play with it, you can download that and learn a lot, and it's free.
We talk about VCV Rack so much, and I feel like I'm staunchly avoiding it for whatever
You
reason.
are avoiding it.
Because I'm not a modular person.
I was avoiding it too, and then Barry
I think I'll
told
probably
me-
end up liking it a lot.
Yeah.
Well, it's
And
Especially
Leo-
on iPad.
The thing about it, though, is that, like, let's say you get one of those kits that at the store that lets you make your own pizza at home.
Yeah.
And it's already got the dough, and it's already got the pepper. It's already got everything in it. All you do is slap stuff together, stick it in the
Yeah.
oven, and there you have it. Okay, that's your regular synthesizers. Now, let's say you're
The
going to
easy
make
bake
your
oven.
pizza from scratch. You got to get the ingredients and do everything yourself. That's modular.
It's the easy bake oven of musical instruments.
Yeah, yeah. So modular can be daunting, but if you start slow and start small,
Yeah.
it won't be so bad.
And the great thing about the VCV Rack is you can go on YouTube and there's so many tutorials.
Yeah,
you
there's
can
a
get
ton
the
of
very
tutorials.
basic.
Yeah.
Start from zero, and you can learn a whole lot using those.
Maybe I'll make an effort to download it, and then we'll go grab coffee, and you'll tell me like what's the first thing that I add.
Well, another cool thing about it is that it's a level playing field. The one that you download is going to be the same one that the YouTube superstar that's getting 1 million views is using. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's not somebody doesn't have to be a millionaire to afford it.
yeah.
And it can be connected to your other instruments.
Yeah, in fact,
so
I
you can
use
use
it to-
MIDI to control it from your MIDI keyboards.
That's really cool.
I use it to expand my modular system. I mean, I have my laptop next to it, and I have one of this particular module physically, but this patch, I want to use 5 of them. I can use 4 from VCV Rack in addition to
Yeah.
the one that I have physically, and it's the same thing.
So,
really
who
cool.
created VCV Rack, and what's their agenda? Like,
Their agenda
What are they
is to democratize modular.
Yeah, VCV Rack is what's called open source
Somebody's got to be
software.
mad about that.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's almost the same if you think about the open source versions of Microsoft Office. right? You can download
Google Sheets and all
Google
that.
Docs or
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's a little
Yeah.
different, but you've got LibreOffice and you've got OpenOffice, and you can download these programs and use them for free and get almost identical functionality as you get with Microsoft Office. But it's kind of along the same line. So it's totally the source code for the program is all out there. Anybody that wants to can write their own code and create their own modules.
And there's lots of
I'll
free
plug-
modules made by people. There are some that they do have a library where there are free and there are paid modules. The paid modules, some of them are really great, but they're not very expensive. I mean, if you like this set of modules this guy makes and he charges $25, then
Yeah.
that's
You're gonna spend it. Yeah.
yeah,
for sure.
and it's not a ton of money. Like if you buy one module, a physical module
Like
of
85
in
cents.
Euro Rack, that's going to cost you at least $100 for
Yeah.
a small module. So VCV Rack is a great way to go.
Be kind of cool to like blur the grounds between the ideas of like virtual instruments and physical instruments. Do they sell anything that is like like modular but controller based?
Well, actually, I have some modules made by a company called Expert Sleepers. One of them is a MIDI to CV module where I can plug in my computer to that, and now any CV or any MIDI can be sent to that module, and that module turns it into CV that can be used with the module, physical modules.
Yeah.
And then I have another one by the same company where you can take voltages created in VCV Rack by any of those modules, send it to that module in the physical world, and it spits out the actual analog voltage. So it does kind of blur the line. But as far as controllers, you can plug in any MIDI controller, and those knobs and buttons will be available.
I suppose you could have. Can you set inside of VCV Rack? Can you set like one of the modules to a MIDI channel?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. There's
So
MIDI
you could have,
modules.
let's say, you created something like that, and it sends out the MIDI data, and then that literally, let's say you rack mounted that on something, and it's all USB powered, and you just like that will always control the VCV physically inside of the iPad.
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
something.
you could map controller
very cool.
functions from your MIDI controller into VCV Rack.
That would be awesome.
So
That's the kind of interfacing I'm mostly interested when it comes to like products and things like that. And I almost want to like learn how to do that stuff because
Maybe I'll take that to Beanalog meet.
Yeah.
Just
Thursday.
bring your. Does it work on the what's it called, on the tablet? Or
Yeah.
does
Yeah, it works on iPad.
Yeah. Okay. So bring your tablet so
Yeah.
we can download it over there.
Another great feature is some of the companies like Bafaco, they have exact copies of all their real, physical Eurorack modules inside VCV Rack.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
you can go and try them out virtually. They're all free. They do the exact same thing and be like, okay, I really like this one. I want to buy it instead of buying it and then realizing. And the other thing is you can use that virtual one to follow along with YouTube tutorials that are on the real one, but you could do the same thing virtually. So, with $0, you don't have to spend anything.
Tell your mom and your girlfriend that you didn't have to spend like all the money that you were going to buy with a car. Instead, you just get the iPad
Yeah.
and you can have all that stuff.
Well, that's how I learned how to connect things because of Reason.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like Reason.
I would look at that as almost a precursor,
Yeah.
of the VCV Rack.
Yeah.
I think it's also interesting, like there's some items like this might be a little bit of a topic change, I don't know, but the Korg Newtek, what is it? The one that has the cool like reverbs and stuff in it. It kind of has that feel, that kind of like a homegrown cool look to it.
Well, you got to build it, right?
Yeah,
You got to build
Yeah,
it
you
up.
have to build it,
That's cool.
and
The Mavis, right? What's it called?
The what?
The Mavis?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the most
yeah.
Mavis,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that what
that's a
you're
really cool one
Oh,
too.
Yeah.
The thing about the Korg one is that there was the NTS one. Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, and the NTS2 I think has the oscilloscope.
Oh yeah, that one's
Yeah.
really cool too.
Yeah.
I haven't even like dug into that too much. It's interesting because there's not really a such thing as like a portable in your hand oscilloscope.
There are some little ones, but that one is, marketed towards, like us.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Isn't there like a Critter and Guitari make a like a video synthesis thing, and I think it kind of has like some features like an oscilloscope probably, where it like detects things. But that's more like fun kind of oriented, not scientific. But the NTS1 has like incredible effects in it, like the reverb and delays and choruses. It's kind of like a little multi-effects pedal without the pedal.
Yeah. Can you layer those or not? Or
I think it's one at a time, which is kind of like, why Korg? What's up with that? Like, whatever happened to the Chaos pads? Because like they just disappeared. And they're such a fascinating way to mess with effects, and that you can layer them and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it seems like the NTS1 is like a little like note under the door of that era. Yeah. And then recently they had done the Wave State that had the cool like Chaos pad, the kinetic pad, where you can like throw the sound across the spectrum, which is really interesting. I like the idea.
Well, did you ever play with the control app for Omnisphere?
No.
It was cool. It's like what you're talking about, except way more. You could really do tons of things with it. So if you wanted to play with like something like a Chaos pad for sound.
What do you have any idea what's going on inside of Omnisphere? Because like it can do everything. What's up with that? It's like Korg's Zencore, but the Omnisphere like literally does everything. So why doesn't Zencore do like a Moog? Is that beneath them?
Well, Zencore, I don't know. The thing about Roland is it has a certain sound about it that sounds, to me, not that great. It's okay, but it sounds fake to me. Whereas Omnisphere,
for our audience, we're here today at Beanalog Studios. We're here. You're listening to Beanalog.
You gotta break up the spiciness. We're in El Paso, Texas.
We're JTL and.
No, I like it when people boohoo Roland a little bit.
But Omnisphere has a certain sound to it that doesn't always sound like a plug-in. It's got a realistic sound. I mean, you pull up some of those analog, quote analog sounds, and they sound big and fat and nice. And the Zencore, from what I've heard, doesn't have that kind of thing to it.
Well, doesn't Omnisphere do like ACB type stuff?
I don't know.
They don't
See,
do
that's
like,
the thing. I'm not sure what's going on inside of Omnisphere. I know they use a lot of samples.
I feel like I ruined somebody's life recently when I told them that their System 1, little like the green, mean green machine.
Yeah.
Is
not analog.
I told them that the System 1 is not analog. It's actually ACB. Yeah. And I just told them like you should probably sell it and get a System 8 because it does everything. Like you can get everything in that.
Well, the System 8 is pretty much the same thing except more. It's also ACB.
As far as I'm aware, a System 1 is we looked it up and it's all.
But see, I think ACB, for those who may not know, is analog circuit behavior from Roland, where they did component modeling as opposed to their other technology that Zencore uses, which is more sample based.
The first ACB, what was that? It wasn't the TR8, huh? I mean, it is. I know
it was
TR8.
Like virtual analog modeling first, right?
No, but like it was in what? Like who? Roland put that out first, or
the modeling? I don't know because Nord, the Nord lead, came out in what 95 or something, and that was virtual analog.
Novation was doing a lot of stuff too. They had something called the K Station, which was sort of like around the time of the Microkorg, I guess. And the Microkorg is also virtual analog model too.
The D50 arguably is also virtual analog because the way it creates its analog waveforms is with a digital modeling.
That thing sounds amazing.
That's back from 1987.
My very favorite probably one of my very favorite sounds is the D50. The way it sounds, it's like warm and crisp at the same time. And strangely, well, I guess just because of the complexity of what it is,
And those
nobody
early
has
days
VSTs of it.
DA converters.
There's no VSTs that are really able to capture that feel. Not all of the sounds, at least.
And your Gaia is B.
Yep.
BAS.
Virtual
Yeah, it is.
analog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Gaia was. Whew.
That's
I
it.
love.
That's
Okay,
its
I love the Roland Gaia, but I feel like it's like one big lie in
Well,
a box.
This is the thing. Yeah, this is the thing. Okay, the root of some of the discussions
The
that
root of
people
all
have.
evil.
I don't love the Roland Gaia. Okay, but you do.
It's fun. It's a
Yeah,
fun
and
thing
see,
to
that's
play.
the thing. That's the thing. You know, when you have people, you know,
It doesn't sound that
poo-pooing
great,
other
though.
stuff, it's often because they don't know it. They haven't gotten to know it. I don't know the Gaia. I've only played with it a little bit.
You don't like the Juno 60 either, huh? Like the
Well, the 60's cool.
or the
It's
106.
the X.
Oh,
I don't like the X.
well, back in the day, like that was it wasn't a fancy synth. It was just like it was just a consumer synth.
You know, the first synths that I ran into in the stores that I thought, why did they do this? were the I think it was the Alpha Junos. It was the later Roland synths.
It had all
after
the analog stuff in it, but it was
Super
just like no
JX.
buttons to interact with it.
Yeah, and
It sounded great though.
I played with a lot of those keyboards that were, you know, buttons only and no sliders. And at the time, they seemed like, wow, these are the latest thing, but
Yeah.
it didn't have the expression.
The JPX8
It was the
something like that.
JD800 when it came out. That was the one I was like, whoa, okay, there's sliders on this thing. You can actually change stuff in real time. And that was a game changer there. That was like, that is so cool because nobody else had stuff like that out yet.
Justin, and you did you get to run into any piece of hardware, or did you always try to go into like building your own and?
Oh yeah, I mean I've got a few. Usually what I have is stuff that I acquired that needed to be fixed because I also like fixing things. So that's another thing. But yeah, I actually had. I would say a micro Korg was probably my first synthesizer that I had that was kind of dedicated. And when I was stationed in Korea, I spent a year, and I was trying to write a patch editor for it because at the time there wasn't one. And so I got through. I'm basically reverse engineering how the patch was stored in the sysx file. You know, basically you create a patch, and you'd send the sysx file to your computer, and then you change one thing, and you'd send the sysx file back to your computer, and you do a comparison and be like, okay, it was position number 725 is where that thing is stored, and then you write that down, and you make a little slider on your software that corresponds with that one thing. And so
That's
that was a
really
lot of
great.
fun, going through trying to make it. And I got it like where it was halfway working, like you could do most of it. But there was some stuff I just never did figure out because sometimes they encode things into that, that make it more
There's
complicated.
an app called Patchbase, right, where you can kind of almost have like a digital interface of the knobs, and you can kind of work with something like that. I am shocked that Korg hasn't actually made a secondary little like amped up thing where it just has all the layout
All
from the
functionality,
MS-2000
yeah.
because it's the same synth pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Like I think it would be so successful
Yeah.
to add that to something that's already a substantial device for most people and everybody has it. So it's like they'd be doubling up on their money. Everybody would buy it.
We'll buy that,
I wonder if it shares CC parameters with MS-2000.
I think so. You can
the patch
transfer
editor
patches.
for the 2000 was very similar.
Really?
You can
Oh,
actually
yeah.
take patches from the MS-2000.
I wonder if you
to
connect
put
the
it on.
MS-2000 to it and
Oh.
control it.
Yeah, maybe. That's
'Cause
interesting.
It
I've
would
never
be
tried
interesting
that.
for someone to take one that maybe wasn't working anymore or something and steal
Somebody
the front
was
panel.
selling an MS-2000 a while back, and I was really wanting to
They're
grab it.
cool. I used to
because
have a Radius, and it was nice.
It had the same layout too, which is
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
because the Radius is the Micro Korg XL.
Right.
So I kind of like the sound of the Radius more. There's something like kind of creamy about it that just sounds good. It's very digital, but it's like not at the same time.
Yeah, it has a really nice warm sound that doesn't sound. A lot of people think it sounds digital, but it doesn't sound bad digital. It's nice.
The layout is extremely confusing for me though.
Yeah.
Like the first thing I do is I'm looking for the cutoff knob, and it's like, where is it? Where is it?
Yeah,
No.
I went through the same thing with it.
So
That's one of the reasons I sold it. It's because of the confusion.
it's
It's easily
really
to get
cool
confused.
looking synthesizer.
Yeah, it is
though.
cool. Yeah. They're just lights though. They don't do anything.
When I first saw the Radius, that was like, I want that. Like that's the first synth I said like that I really wanted.
Yeah.
And then it ended up being the Gaia, like maybe like 5-6 years. No, not even, like way more than that. Probably 10 years after I had gotten into synthesizers. Started doing that. So I hadn't even gotten a synthesizer while I was in the synthesizers back in the day. I was like maybe 15 or 16 when I was like starting to learn about Moogs.
What was your first synthesizer?
My first synthesizer is the Roland Gaia.
Oh, it's the Gaia.
Yeah. Well, or if you want to be technical, it was a Casio.
Well, there you go.
Casio keyboards.
The
True
SK1.
synthesizer is Gaia.
I was balancing between trying to get a hold of the Casio had this like weird actual like subtractive style synthesis thing. It was like the only thing they've ever done that was like really kind of towards that in the modern age. It was like orange and red or something. I can't even remember. But it was actually intended to be like an organ emulator. But of course, Casio's keys feel horrible to me. And like, I would love Casio to like step out and do like an SK2 or
The
something.
SK1. You ever played with the
And
SK1?
it's really cool.
I used to have one of those.
Those old 80s toy keyboards, I collect a couple of them. And I have one of their smaller ones.
It was like black and turquoise, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah,
The
it was
key-
so cool because the little sampling button, you hit the little button and it would make it'd make like a little beep or something, and you would sample your thing. They'd go doop to let you know it was done.
I
And then
like
you
the
could-
drum
you could
machines
play
that
it.
are in there, and the little ROM cards.
Yeah.
You can like some of them take ROM cards that have songs built in on them, and you can do some really neat stuff with that, especially if you put them through like an amplifier or like effects.
Hey, Casio makes great calculators.
Yeah.
Casio.
I like the retro watch. There's like a thing that's been happening in the
my
last
God.
year or two. Everybody shows up with like the 80s Casio watch.
Yeah.
She just
And
lost her
just like,
watch.
I just love.
They're like $20.
No, they're like 40 right now.
Oh, because everybody wants them.
Yeah, everybody.
That's the watch
There's
from
inflation, watch inflation.
That's the watch from
Yeah.
Planes, Trains, and Automobile that John Candy. So you want to buy my Casio?
I would like to hear from everybody. Which one is your like? Which one is the piece of equipment that you own right now that you love the most? I'm curious about stuff like that. And I'm gonna start with Barry. Come on, Barry. Tell me which one is the piece
Well,
of
go
equipment.
through some of the stuff you have first,
no,
and
no.
then
Like,
the ones.
which one is your favorite? Well, I know that you have all sorts of, let's say, hardware, software, and your digital on, like whatever you have on Ableton as a plugin.
My favorite.
BST, your favorite BST, your
Oh,
favorite
okay.
piece of hardware, and your favorite piece of software.
It's hard to say because one day my favorite piece is my ARP 2600, but on the next day my favorite is my Moog 1, and on the next day it's the easel. So there's not, any one that I say is my favorite. If somebody said you can only keep one, I'd be like, oh my gosh, just take them all.
The 2600 is so much fun. It's
Yeah.
like so fun to play.
It's
and
simple though.
program
It's
with.
super simple because it's a 3 VCO synth through a filter, a mixer, spring reverb. I mean, it's not much different from.
The reverb sounds awesome on it too.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's
That's-
a mono reverb, and what they did is they sent it to both sides and they inverted the polarity of one side, so it sounds big when you turn
And
it up.
Moog kind of copied them with the grandmother
Grandmother.
thing. I thought
don't
that was
know.
that's a good idea.
I don't know if that one is stereo though. I don't think it is.
Don't think so. No.
Yeah.
I think it's mono.
Yeah, but VST wise, probably one of my favorite would be Omnisphere. Sounds great. I just don't use a whole lot of VSTs a lot. My favorite digital synth right now is probably the Waldorf Iridium, because man, that thing does tons of things. Sounds great.
Luisa, this is an upsetting question because like I'm thinking of all the synths that I want right now that I don't have.
Well, hold on that. Let Justin answer the question, and then we'll go to you.
I think for me, whatever my most recent acquisition is kind of always my favorite for a while. And right now I've got a new Eurorack module called Beads by Mutable Instruments. They're getting ready to stop any new modules.
They've already stopped.
Yeah, they've already stopped, and they're starting to phase out the ones they've already
Everybody
built.
get onto Reverb right now.
They'll still be. That's the nice thing is that all those modules are open source, so people will still be able to build them and sell them, even though the creator won't get any of the money from it. But anyways, yeah, Beads is an interesting module. It's a sampler that you play, and it has a lot of interesting features on it. Of course, your typical Eurorack stuff where you can input modulation into pretty much everything on it. And then it also has, normally you'll have attenuators, knobs on the modules that only you go from 0 to 10 or whatever. But on these on the Beads module, it has special modes where it does that randomness that we talked about earlier in a programmatic way, without introducing any new signals into the device. So that's pretty cool. As far as software goes, I have FL Studio is kind of my main DAW anyways. I don't do a ton in it. I grew up with like Cubase and some of the other. I actually really liked Acid when it first came out, because it had a lot of good features with synchronizing with MIDI. So what I generally like to do is come up with something cool on my Eurorack and then synchronize that and record that into FL Studio. And then now I have my own clips that I can mess with and do things with. And then I'm not a big VST guy. I don't have a big collection of virtual plugins or anything like that. I use the ones that come with it, and I haven't purchased anything or anything like that. It's always frustrating though, because how they package the software with all these plugins, and you go to use them, and they're like, "Oh, trial use. You can use it for 1 minute, or 30 seconds, and you get all. You're like, "Oh, that sounds good," and you're like, "Oh, I don't want to buy it." So yeah, I wish there would be a button where you could press to just delete out anything that's not 100%.
It's like free.
Yeah,
it's like
that's
freeware.
free. Yeah, just leave the free ones and let me go to town.
Junkware on your Windows computer.
So VST and software. Oh yeah, you already answered all of them. Yeah.
They have a lot of free, great stuff online. You just find and download, and it works, and it's pretty creative too.
And yours, Ray? Let's give a okay. Are you ready?
Is it my turn? Okay.
Yes.
As far as like hardware,
The Gaia.
the Gaia is cool. I like the way that it operates. I hate the way that it sounds. So like, I don't hate it entirely. It has a very like cheap, fun. It's kind of like I think the Gaia is literally like if Casio wanted to make a synth, it would be the Gaia. Like it has that kind of feel. It does have a Rolandy sound. It just doesn't. Yeah. This is why I said this question was brutal, because I have been in the midst of like a big struggle with all of my hardware lately, and there's things that I like about it, but at the end of the day, from the very beginning, I've always wanted like big poly synths. That's just what I like, and I've always been a big fan of the Moog sounds. And Arturia, as far as VSTs, Arturia, the Mini V and also the iPad iMini are amongst some of my very favorite apps, and they always kind of play back to me a little bit, and I'm very happy with the sound of them. And I kind of try to like curve my expectation, because I know it's not analog, but I think you can make beautiful music on anything, and it doesn't have to be perfect or analog or expensive even. And doubling back, my favorite hardware is probably my Korg Chrome 88 key workstation because it does everything that I want it to do. The keys are pretty good feeling. Most of the keyboards that I have, all the keys feel really like not that great. So I like have like a bunch of hardware, but it all feels like very samey and like not super high quality. So I think creatively, like I want to work with something that like has like a real tactile feel to it, and the D50 is amazing. Like the key feel, the dynamics on the velocity in that keyboard, and the sounds that come out of it.
I liked it too.
It does. I don't own that keyboard. That actually belongs to my church. So I've just been like hiding it away because nobody wants to play it. Nobody
You're the
asks.
caretaker for it.
Caretaker. Yeah. So nobody asks about it. Nobody talks about it. Occasionally, I'll bring it back to church and let it sit there and see if anybody says anything. Like, oh yeah, we should use that. And I was like, no, nobody even knows like.
And
what
you
it
just
is.
say you don't want to use that old '80s keyboard.
It's just one of those terrible. Have you ever been to a pawn shop? They just have those things everywhere.
You just throw it away.
You should tell them that kind of instrument just plays techno. And they
Yeah.
wouldn't serve no purpose.
Yeah. I don't think.
I had
Well, no, like in a church setting, like most people think like those 80s keyboards, it sounds like a Disney ballad to them. So they don't have a particular perspective on like the potentials for it. Even though I'm kind of like a retro
All you got to do is just
style
pull up the
musician.
Fantasia patch, and there you go.
Sounds like literal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Disney. Yeah.
That's great. What was the other question? The VST?
The VST, the hardware, and the software.
Okay, so I wanted to also mention ROM, which RAUM. It could be Room. It's a free reverb that came from Native Instruments, and I put that on literally everything, and I love it. It sounds really good. It was free, and it was great. Also, the Juno 60 VST from Arturia is pretty cool too. I've actually learned like a lot of the ones that I don't like, which what used to be the Juno 60, I didn't like it that much until I just scrapped all the presets and just started turning a few knobs, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Juno should sound like a Juno, not like trying to sound like other things, because then it just sounds not that great.
Well, as far as hardware for me, I think the thing I like the most, it's not even that I like it or anything like that. It's just it's always around, and it's the Roland TR8, and I think that's probably like the instrument that I have like the closest relationship to, like where I know it like really well, just because I use it at the Beanalog jam sessions all
Does
the
that
time.
mean you're a drummer?
No, I don't know. Like I don't know. I feel like it's like the controlling instrument, and maybe that's what I like about it. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I know it pretty well, and that I get something unique out of it. So for me, like that's probably the one. As far as software, or I guess you could say a VST, probably Reason. Because like I grew up with Reason, and yeah, like I think I got Reason. I think I got the first one. Like this guy, he had what do you call it? He paid. I sent him like $150 to burn me a CD or a DVD of it, because he was like, look, he had this like acid house kind of music, and he was like, I'm gonna. What do you call it? I need to go to the Winter Music Conference, and I'm going to be passing out all my music. And are you going to help me? And I'm like, I'll send you the Reason. I'm like, yeah, sure. And like, here's $150. I got Reason, and I started on it. And yeah, like I thought it was like my own little private playground, and it was small enough that I didn't feel like I only had the sampler, I only had the subtractor. It didn't even have the like that. The reverb was the little red units, and that was it. And yeah, and it worked on my Mac, and it was great. And then as a VST, I don't know. I kind of don't like I mean, I do like VSTs, but I mean, probably it's like kind of like a utility is that vocal writer. Like it kind of like smooths out the voices for me. And I don't know. I'm always concerned about that. Like I don't know. Just like
Makes it too clean or what?
well, no. It like I guess when I hear I don't know the vocals like they're peaking and then it gets kind of and then I don't know, it gets wavy, but this kind of like smooths it out for me.
It's
and,
like a virtual fader. That
yeah,
automatically
and
writes
it'll
the
just
vocal.
follow like you give it a range and it'll follow that. And I don't know. I think it makes it sound a whole lot better.
I use Reaper as my DAW.
Reaper?
Yeah.
Oh, that's like a tracker or
Yeah, the DAW is like just. It's okay. It's cool. It makes me.
That's an
it
open
gets-
source.
Gets me to do
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I played with one of those and like I remember liking it, but I was so invested in Reason that I was
Yeah,
just like I
that's-
cannot.
Once you pick one and you're kind of with it, it's very hard to get into the workflow of a different one.
Yeah, I was like, well, like this, it's like
I
a
feel like
spreadsheet
I
that
feel
looks
like
pretty.
I so badly want to learn Ableton, but I'm like, nah, because it's just too
you have
much.
to make an investment. Yeah.
Because Ableton is like completely opposite of Reaper.
Have you ever
It works
played with
so different.
the Poly Tracker? Is that? That's kind of like it. That looks like it's like Reaper or something to me. Have you guys played with that or no? Okay,
Okay, we are running out of time.
scratch that.
We're running out of time, so we're gonna say goodbye for this episode. This was Luisa.
You've been listening to the Beanalog podcast.
I'm Jean-Luc.
No, I'm Jean-Luc.
Oh, okay. I'm Ray.
This was Justin.
And Barry.
So
Cool.
we'll see
That
you
guy's
next
Leo.
time. We are on what platforms are we in right now? And when is our next meetup?
That's a very good question, but definitely we're on Spotify.
On Spotify. Yeah, you can catch us on Spotify. Beanalog with Beanalog. And
Wherever you get your podcasts, just look for us.
Awesome. And the next Beanalog, when is it?
Thursday.
Thursday.
August 18th.
August.
We do a live jam
18th.
session, and August 18th on a Thursday in El Paso. If you're in El Paso,
Okay, people, listen up here. You can try all these amazing synthesizers out that we bring, and it's super cool, and you should totally come and hang out with us. Even if you're from out of state, because that would be really cool if people came from all around to just come to Beanalog.
We had a few guys showing up like that. Like we just see them once, and then what was in here because of blah 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 blah, and then we don't see them
they
again.
typed
Are we
it in.
still at?
Yeah.
Are we still at the Glass Box or whatever?
We're still on Poplar Street.
Poplar,
for-
210.
Yeah, 210 Poplar Street. It's called Toma Gallery and Studios.
210 Poplar Street. It's
South
off of
Poplar.
Piedras, or like you
Yeah.
kind of get off of Piedras on the opposite side that I normally go to.
And
Which is-
we're working on our Leo, our producer today, he worked on our website. So soon we're gonna be live on the web, and you're gonna be able to look for us. Not as Beanalog.com because somebody already took it.
Really? Wow.
Someone in Japan.
Really?
That was me. If you'd like to buy it, just let me know and I can negotiate the fee.
There you
It can
go.
be yours for 250,000.
That's really cool.
Something, yeah.
We need a synth hub.
But we'll see you next time, and thank you for listening to.
Beanalog.
Beanalog
Be
with Beanalog.
Analog. Is that what it's called now?
Be analog.
Be Analog with Beanalog on the Beanalog podcast.